Now, as we mentioned, only about 20% of Harvey victims have flood insurance, and a new law in Texas will go into effect tomorrow that could possibly make it harder to sue insurance companies for delayed payment of claims.
Yeah, Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro is encouraging Texans to file claims before this bill becomes a law. And the Democratic representative is on the phone with us right now. Thanks for joining us, Representative Castro. So this law goes into effect on September 1st. Break it down for us. What sort of impact can it have on Harvey victims?
Well, the first thing is you see that most folks have no insurance at all, which obviously is a tragedy. But for those that do, there will be a subset of people that are affected by this law. And basically, starting September 1st, there's more leverage because of this law that's given to insurance companies if there's a dispute over a claim. So if you're being delayed in getting your compensation from your insurance company, or you're getting lowballed, for example, basically if there's a disagreement that turns into litigation, this law now stacks the deck more in favor of insurance companies by doing a few things. First, creating new hurdles in the claims process or in the litigation process. You've got to give 61 days notice before filing suit. It's going to lower attorney's fees, which will make it harder probably for people to find an attorney willing to take the case. But also, one of the provisions drops the amount of interest penalty that the insurance company has to pay if they make a late payment to the insured. Drops it right now from 18% to 10%. And so that's the reason that myself and the State Bar and the Office of Insurance Counsel in Texas made the recommendation that if possible, you should try to file a claim by September 1st.
Now, one of the sponsors of this bill, Senator Kelly Hannock, is saying, look, safety first. Don't try to rush back to your house to get paperwork or take pictures. This is not the time to be thinking about whether or not you're going to be able to file a claim quick enough and save it a little, or perhaps get a little extra money.
Well, I mean, it's true that everybody should consider their personal safety first. I think that's true. But this will have a real impact on probably thousands of claims among the folks that have been affected. And that's why we say if it's possible, if you could do it safely, try to file by September 1st.
Congressman, destructive flooding has hit Texas several times this year. Houston has been always hit by flooding, going back to practically its founding. Why isn't Houston considered a flood risk zone?
That's a great question. And I think that we're going to get into a lot of debates about low-lying areas, for example, and development in low-lying areas when we reauthorize, hopefully, the National Flood Insurance Program, which is set to expire on September 30th, because obviously things are going to have to change as we rebuild in Texas and in the Gulf Coast region.
So let's talk about what changes need to be made. Vlad mentioned that only 20% of Harvey victims actually have flood insurance. It's pretty expensive, and in many cases it's not available to you at all. What needs to change?
Well, first, flood insurance should be more widely available to folks, and obviously there are more areas that need to be covered because there's been flooding in areas around Houston this time where nobody expected. Some of them were predictable, but there are other areas where nobody expected. And so there's going to have to be a real thorough evaluation going forward of development in certain areas, but also in the fact that you've got to make sure that people are covered, that insurance is more widely available to folks.
Mm-hmm.
Congressman, Houston is an incredible American success story. I mean, this is one of the world's petroleum leaders. It is where we sent a man to the moon. There are 145 languages spoken in Houston. In other words, it's a very diverse melting pot. It's made housing affordable for millions of Americans to be able to live the American dream. On the other hand, that rapid growth has meant that there's been a lot of building, a lot of developing with very lax codes, building codes in place, zoning codes in place, which a lot of scientists say has stripped away the ability of the land to absorb moisture, absorb water, devastating rains like this. So how do you balance the requirements of people who want to have a shot at the American dream with keeping them safe as the weather patterns seem to get more and more destructive every year?
No, I think that's a great question and a tough one to answer. I have confidence that Mayor Turner, after we've moved to a period of recovery and rebuilding, we'll be able to bring people together in Houston and really think about how Houston goes forward to build in the best possible way, to make sure that that the city is protected as much as possible from this happening again. Now, this was the largest rainfall in American history, now over 52 inches. So the scale is something that we've never seen in American history. That said, going forward, I think there can be put more protections in place in terms of the design, in terms of building and where we build to protect ourselves.
You will be returning to Capitol Hill next week. The August recess is wrapping up. The House is going to be considering a bill that may impact Texans. It's a bill that would slash disaster relief funds to help pay for President Trump's border wall. At the same time, we heard the president say over and over again that he is ready to do whatever the federal government can do to help Houston and Texas and Louisiana recover from Harvey. So how do you see this playing out?
Well, the first thing is that I hope that my colleagues in Congress from both sides of the aisle can be supportive of what I expect will be an aid package for Texas in the tens of billions of dollars. Myself and many other Texans, of course, were supportive of relief packages for Superstorm Sandy. And I hope that Congress learned its lesson from that divisive debate, which was delayed also, that we should put the politics aside and be able to support Americans when they're in dire time of need. And so I hope that that will happen this time for Texas. In terms of the border wall, I also hope that in terms of the supplemental package, that there are no games that are played by the president or by any other legislators. And nobody has said anything, but watching Congress over the last few years, I know that sometimes people will try to stick things in bills that are unrelated. And so, I hope that we don't see anything like the border wall funding put into a supplemental aid package for Texas. That would be a line. That's a line that shouldn't be crossed there. I voted against the border wall funding, but if there's to be a separate vote again on that, that's fine. I'll vote no again, and those who support it will vote yes, but it shouldn't be mixed in with any kind of aid package.
Your point about playing politics when people's lives are at stake, Congressman, is well taken. Something I'm sure Senator Cruz, for example, is thinking about greatly right now as we watch these images of the devastating flooding in Houston. I want to ask you, though, about President Trump. He visited Texas this week. He's expected back in Texas perhaps this weekend. He did not go to the hardest hit areas, and there are a variety of reasons for that. But what's your take? What's your feeling on his response, not only as the president, but as consoler-in-chief?
I'm glad, first of all, that the president acted right away for Texas and declared Texas, the areas affected, a disaster area, and that he did visit the state of Texas. But, because this has been such an intense period here in our state, I've got to be honest with you. Other than those things, I've kind of tuned the president of the United States out.
You've tuned out the president of the United States. How so?
Well, a lot of the work that's gone on has had to do with the governor, with local officials, with ordinary citizens and volunteers who have given so much in trying to rescue people, in donations, in financial contributions, that to me, that's most of the important work that has happened. I don't mean to be rude or curt to the president. I'm just saying that a lot of the important work that's gone on has happened here among Texans locally.
Democratic Representative Joaquin Castro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.